Hi guys, how are you? It's Ebony and this is the Peacock Room. And the Peacock Room, you'll hear a lot more about it, but I'm just trying to come to you to try to engage my audience and see what this thing is all about. Just kind of trying out a vlog. And my vlog is going to be entitled The Peacock Room, and we'll be talking a lot about a lot of things. But today I want to talk about wellness because in this room we'll talk a lot about wellness, journeys to wellness, being whole, being accepting of yourself and loving yourself and taking care of yourself, self-love, self-care, that kind of thing. Well, with that in mind, I want to tell you about a story. I was going to do a story time. Y'all want to do a story time with me? Okay, so my story today is going to be about my wellness and my journey. And I'm trying to get set up here, so bear with me because I'm going to have a little drink while I talk to you guys. But anyway, was I supposed to be? I don't think I was supposed to show any kind of thing, anything. So, okay. But anyway, my story today was inspired by Iyanla Van Zant. She's been doing this spiritual spa on her YouTube channel, and it talks a lot about self-awareness, self-help, wellness, wholeness, that kind of thing. So this was inspired by her because yesterday she put up a video, and her video was talking about masks and people wearing masks and mask of fear and shame and all those kinds of things. Well, anyway, I want to come and I want to do a story time because I want to tell y'all about my mask. And my mask was one of fear, and we'll get into it. It's going to be a little journey through my life and just stuff. It's going to be about colorism and denial and acceptance and just coming full circle in the evolution. So let's get started. Anyway, again, like I said, my name is Ebony, and I know you guys don't know me and I don't know you, so let's get to know each other. And we'll do that by starting with my story. Anyway, I guess I'll start from the beginning, from when I was young. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little drink. When I was young, I grew up in Louisiana. And if anybody knows anything about Louisiana, then we know the history of Louisiana, and we know the issues of colorism and beauty standards and that kind of thing. We know Louisiana, so no need for me to start bashing Louisiana. We know what it's all about. Anyway, so me being the brown skinned girl, being the little girl, I was one of 10 children born to my mother. Of course, because nature of us, we come in all shades and colors and all kinds of things. So anyway, I was one of the browner girls in the family, and it didn't bother me at all. Didn't affect me at all. In fact, I thought I was really pretty. I've always had high self-esteem, so I never bothered me. I have to attribute that a lot to my mother. She would not allow anybody to make any of us feel any kind of way about ourselves other than we were beautiful. She had 8 girls and 2 boys, so of course it was very important for her to make her daughters feel beautiful and to feel loved. So I have to give that credit to my mother. Another person I have to give credit to is my cousin Veronica. So my cousin Veronica, she is the one who made my head so super big, because I remember when I was a kid, she was in college and I was a kid, and she was in college at Grambling State, and she would come live with us evenings and weekends and that kind of thing, because it wasn't that far from my house, and she was our cousin. Well, anyway, she would come home, and she and I would watch movies. I don't know where everybody else was, because we had a house full of people. I don't remember anybody else, but I just remember she and I, and we would watch movies. And I remember watching Mahogany and those kinds of movies with her. And she would always say, "Oh, you're going to be a supermodel. You're going to be beautiful, just like Mahogany." So, my name was Ebony, so I thought I was going to be, Ebony instead of Mahogany. It was just going to be on. I was just going to be this supermodel traveling the world, and all the things. So that kind of set the precedent for who I thought I was. And she would always call me supermodel, so I always thought I was beautiful, because clearly models are beautiful, so I'm beautiful. I didn't think anything of it. That was my ideal of myself growing up, and I grew up not knowing any different. I don't know how I got to Louisiana without any issues, because we all know in Louisiana, a brown-skinned girl can develop an issue. Well, anyway, or a complex, I'll say. Anyway, as I grew up into my late teens, I actually moved to Nashville, Tennessee. And in Tennessee, I actually became a model. I became a model, and it's a funny story, because in Tennessee, I had booked this modeling gig, this modeling job, and the girl who was over the shoot, well, not even over the shoot, she was just on the shoot. She was a model on set. She was like, "Oh my God, we need talent who's representing you." And at the time I didn't have an agent. So I told her I didn't have an agent. So she wanted to represent me. So I said, sure. So she gave me her card, and she told me to send her, take some headshots and send them to her. How I got the job without an agent is another story for another day, another story time. But anyway, so I sent her my headshots. And what you have to know is, when I was on set for the shoot, I had extensions in. But when I sent her my headshots, I had taken the extensions out. So I just had a regular little Louisiana girl bob, In fact, I have the picture, so I'm going to show it to you. So, give me just a second. So before I had the extensions in, and then I took them out. And so when I sent them to her, she asked me for some All-American Girl looks, one in a white poplin shirt and one in a t-shirt. So let me show you what I actually sent her. This is you can see that. This is my white poplin shirt. Can you see my little headshot I thought I was going to get away with? Youth. But anyway, so that was that. And so when she saw it, she was like, "So, what happened to your hair?" Basically. And so I was like, "Nothing." And she was like, I was like, "Oh, that was extensions. That wasn't my hair." And so she was like, "Well, can you put the extensions in and take them over?" And I was like, okay, fine, sure, whatever. And so I went back. I don't know why I have allergies, baby, so I'm sorry. But anyway, I went back, took the pictures, and I sent them again. And so the second time, she loved them. She was like, "Oh, that's exactly what I was wanting." I have the headshot. So this, if you can see that, was the headshot. That's what I sent her. That was the second one, and that's what she loves. So let me show you these in comparison. The first one and the second one, if you can see that. I don't know. But anyway, so those are my headshots. And let me tell you, it was just right then that my mask was created, because I sent them to my mother in Louisiana and my father, who was living in Houston, Texas. And what you have to know is a little bit of background, but between me and my father. Me and my father had a long, sorted, back and forth, unhealthy relationship, because I was born of an affair. My father was a married man, and for most of my youth, he denied my sister and myself, not to us and not to my mom and not to Louisiana, because we knew him as our father. But in Houston, he was living a different life. He was married, and he had not announced the fact that he had love children. So for most of my young life, it was an issue of denial. So that created for me a really hurtful, long journey of acceptance and love, because I really wanted him to acknowledge me and love me and just accept me. And he didn't. He actually did not. I mean, he did in Louisiana, but he had a different life in Houston. I'm sorry. So it was just different. So that created a complex for me, daddy issues for me, for a long time. And so I told you all that so that I can tell you, when I sent him this headshot, now that I think I was 19 or 20 at the time. Anyway, he called me, and my dad really does not pick up the phone to call me. I think that was the second time in his whole life, or in my whole life, that he had called me. And so he called me, and he was like, "Oh my God, your pictures are so pretty. They're beautiful. I can't believe your hair has grown so long." And because I think I hadn't been in like a year or so to see him. I think I started going to see my dad when I was 17. So I saw him a couple of times at 18, that kind of thing. So he hadn't seen me in like a year. So I was like, "Dad, that's not my hair. That's extensions." He didn't really understand. So I had to tell him, it's kind of like a wig, And so he was like, "Well, you need to wear your hair just like that." And so, because he had given me these compliments and said I was pretty and beautiful, and that's what I wanted to hear, and it was kind of like an acceptance. And he said, because he said, "I put your picture right above my office chair," and so everybody comes in to see him in his office, because he was a businessman. They would see my picture. So to me, in my head, that meant he accepted me, he acknowledged me as his daughter. So of course, that was golden for me. Of course, I love that. And so, of course, that meant I had to wear my hair in these extensions. That started the complex, started the mask. I did not know, because what I thought was, well, if I look this way, my dad thinks I'm pretty. My dad thinks I'm acceptable. My dad thinks I'm he can acknowledge me now. So that's what that meant in my head. So that's what happened. So I started wearing these extensions. And at the time, I was going through some things, and I was starting to get counseling. And in my counseling session, my counselor told me that I had dad issues. And so the counselor said, "Where's your dad?" And I said, "Well, he's in Texas." And I was living in Tennessee at the time. And she said, "Well, I'm telling you now, you have a lot of dad issues." And she said, "Do you have a relationship with him?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Is it a healthy one?" And I was like, "Well, whatever." And she said, "Well, I'm telling you now, I know it's unhealthy. And if you don't fix these issues, you're going to continue to have bad relationships the rest of your life." I'm sorry, guys, I got to get myself comfortable here. But anyway, and so I said, "Oh, okay." And so at the time, I had but this is a couple of years later. I had my son. I had my son in 2000. So, and this could have been 2001 to 2002 because I moved to Houston in 2003. So I called my dad and I said, Dad, I want to come and live in Houston with you. And he was hesitant, but he said, okay, it was fine. So I moved to Houston. I moved to Houston, and it started with the extension. With the extensions and the picture and the headshot, but it exploded when I moved to Houston. It blew up, and let me tell you why. Okay, so what happened was when I moved to Houston, I did not really know my father. I had not lived with him. I would come and visit with him, but it was, for a week or maybe two. And it only started when I was 17, and it was sporadic. So I really didn't know him. And when we were younger, he would come, but he would only visit for a couple hours, maybe take us to the store 3-4 hours. So I didn't have that kind of relationship with my dad. But what I soon realized was that my father was a colorist, and it was deep, because my father, I look just like him. I'm brown just like him, face round just like him. I look like my dad. My mom is a fair-skinned woman. I have my mom's body, but my dad's face and my dad's skin. So, when I first heard him saying some things that I thought were detrimental to me, I couldn't believe it, because I was just like, well, first of all, I thought I was pretty. Second of all, I look just like you. So it was perplexing to me that he could say these things, and about what he would call dark-skinned women. Dark-skinned women or dark-skinned woman was like one adjective, or dark-skinned nappy-headed was just like one adjective. It was terrible looking back, but thank God for growth, and thank God for journeys. And so my dad, I worked for my dad. My dad was a businessman here in Houston, and I worked for him, for years. And in the office, my dad would remark about women, that just random women that would come in. And oh my God, I realized my dad had issues with darker women. He loved lighter skinned women. He was one of those men of a certain time and a certain day. And he just loved light-skinned women, but darker-skinned women, it was always a negative connotation. It was a negative reaction. It was a negative adjective that he would attach to these women all the time. And it hurt me, because I'm a brown-skinned woman. I'm a dark-skinned woman. What do you mean? And so he would say things. My desk was right next to his. And so he would just say terrible things, how ugly darker skinned women were, and dark skinned women need long hair because that's the only way they can look good. They don't need to wear that nappy head, because now he's realized that you can wear extensions or wigs, and so he's like, they don't need to wear that nappy hair. They need to wear extension or a wig, because that's the way they look good. So he's talking about me, because I'm the brown skinned girl. I'm the dark skinned woman with extensions. And so that it would just be so hurtful. And I don't think he was aware of what he was saying. And I tried to breach the subject with him a few times, but he never got it. He never thought that he was saying these things to me, to a dark-skinned woman who was his daughter. I guess you know how you could get into like the boys club if you're working with someone and y'all kind of get close. Well, he was like that. He got very comfortable enough to say the things he really thought. And what he really thought was terrible and very hurtful, especially to me, being his daughter who looks just like him. And so in my head, is this self-hate? Is what I know it was to be, self-hate, because I look just like you. You're dark skin. You're brown skin. What are you talking about? And so, oh, it was terrible. It was just terrible, the things he would say. And then coming home, he was married for the second time this go round. And his wife made it no better because she was the kind of woman at the time. He divorced. They divorced by the time he passed. But she was the kind of woman. She was a lighter skinned woman, and she believed that light skinned women were somehow better looking than dark skinned women. And she couldn't believe that I had all this confidence. Like she didn't understand where this confidence come from. And she was the kind of woman who would be, she was the kind of woman who would want to break your confidence if she thought you didn't deserve to be that way. And who she thought didn't deserve was darker skinned women. And at work and at home, just the constant remarks, comments, saying things. I don't know how I survived. I don't know how I survived, y'all. I'm sorry. I don't know. But I did, and I was fine because, of course, I had confidence, but it was being challenged every day, it seemed. My dad would say things. I was trying to think of some examples, but he would say stuff like one time this guy had come into the office, and they were just, you know how two guys are just talking, they're friends, and so they're joshing around. And so the guy had said, he told my dad, you have a really pretty daughter, which is crazy because she looks like you and you're ugly. So, they were kind of joshing around with each other, making fun of each other, joking around. Anyway, and so my dad said, yeah, she's pretty. And then he said, he said, it's so crazy because she looks like you. And then my dad said, yeah, she's pretty, but what if she was light? Just imagine if she was lighter. What if I was lighter? Would that make any difference? Would that make me prettier? It blew my mind. What? What? Like, I'm like, what did he just say? So it was just stuff like that every day. If it wasn't a terrible remark about some woman or he would always remark on what I should look like. And I remember it was this darker skinned woman that he actually thought was pretty. And he would say how, she had long hair and she had these degrees and she was associated with different associations and she had this certain kind of lifestyle. And so she was like one of the bourgeoisie, I guess. And so he in his head, that was the only way dark-skinned women could be acceptable. It was some kind of respectability politic going on in his head, that only if you look this way and if you were dark-skinned could you be acceptable. That was terrible. But me, in full mask, in full performance, I'm wearing my hair in extensions. I'm dressing a certain way. I'm going to go join all these organizations, and I'm trying to fit a lifestyle, a bill that was imposed upon me, because I honestly didn't have to do these things in my head. But for him, that was the only way anybody was going to accept me or marry me, and I was already a single mother, and so that was even a bigger strike against me. It was just crazy. And so I'm trying to put on some clothes, and I'm trying to wear my hair. I'm trying to fit into these organizations. And truth of the matter was, none of this stuff was me. It was all a mask. It was all a performance. It was all, I created a persona because I set out to do this, and so I did. And it was beautiful women and people I met along the way, and they were really accepting of me, and it was fine, but I knew that it just was not me. And I was pretending. I was trying to be something or somebody that I was not, in order to please someone who clearly didn't love himself, so he couldn't love me properly. And so, at the time, I couldn't see that. I just thought, my dad accepts me now. He publicly acknowledges me. I live with him now. I am my dad's daughter now. It's the ultimate acceptance for me, validation for me. So I wasn't going to change. I wasn't going to do anything different. And then, but as I grew and I kept going, and more counseling and wellness, and I realized just that I was pretending to be something I wasn't, to get the love and affection of someone. And I felt like I didn't have to do that. I felt like I shouldn't have to do that. And so I just didn't want to. And my dad and I would just clash, and we would just get into big fights because I realized how unhealthy the relationship was. And so, and I just was standing up for myself. And he had not ever had anybody stand up to him, because my father was, or if you did, you were out of his life. And so, because my father was a businessman, he was successful, and he thought money ruled the world. So he would only have people around him that would kiss up to him. And I was just getting to a point where I'm not doing it. That's not why I'm here, and I'm your daughter. And if you don't appreciate me or love me, I'm not doing this with you. And so I left, and I moved out. Well, anyway, I had actually met a lovely man who is now my husband. And even that, my dad, I don't understand why he didn't like him at first. And my husband is the epitome of what you would want your daughter to marry. He was a handsome guy, a very sweet gentleman, very sensitive, very loving. He's a successful guy in his own right. He's an attorney. He's a corporate attorney, so he takes good care of us. And I didn't understand why my dad didn't like him at first. I had no idea. And so that, listen, I love that man. So I'm just not going to let you mistreat him. It's just a no. And so we would have these big old fights about my husband, all kinds of stuff. And so I wind up just moving out. And I actually wound up getting married. And I fell out with my dad. And I just like, you know what? I got married in 2009, and so I was just like, I'm done, I'm leaving, and da-da-da, da-da-da. And so we would get into these big fights and stuff. Anyway, so I moved out, got married, whatever. And so it was very rare that I would go. We lived 10 minutes from each other, and it was very rare that I would go over there. And I would call and check on him and stuff. But every time I would go over there, it would be some blow up, because I was healthier, and he was still unhealthy. The relationship was still unhealthy. And I'll say that the relationship was still unhealthy. But anyway, fast forward a few years, my dad got sick. And because at this time he's now divorced, and for the second time, and he lives alone, and he only has 2 daughters, myself and my sister, and my sister was in Louisiana. And so one day, I had a dream, and in the dream, just as sure as my name is Ebony, this real colorful figure was just telling me my dad was sick, and I need to get over there and check on him and see about him and take care of him, because it won't be long. And so I did. That's exactly what I did. And so in the beginning, it was touch and go, and I wasn't really feeling that. And okay. And so I would go, and then but then it became more and more, and longer and longer. The stays was longer and longer. And so, but as I was coming more, he was getting sicker. And so I actually wound up in the end having to live with him, because he became total care. Well, anyway, as my dad got sicker and we spent more time together, our relationship got better. And I swear, because I was being obedient to that colorful figure to come and say, take care of him, because I was being obedient, I got rewarded with the gift of relationship with my dad. And it was over that time as he got sicker, but we got better. We got better. And we were spending more and more time together, and the relationship grew, and we were able to laugh and joke and share stories and share everything. And the relationship grew to a point where everything I ever wanted, and from my dad, just a really good relationship. We just talk, and we spent 20 hours out of 24 hours together towards the end, because he had fallen and he couldn't walk, and then he became total care and that kind of thing. And so I had to feed him. We had getting to a point we had to like turn him every 2 hours so he wouldn't get any bed sores. Like, it was a really hard existence, watching your hero just deteriorate. Why can't I say that word? But it was so necessary, because we got better, and we developed the relationship, and we got stronger. And the father that I was wanting and needing, he really did. And one day we were at the hospital, because later on in his life, he was in the hospital. And so we were there, and I was there. I was putting on a blanket because he said he was cold. Well, anyway, it was July 18th. I'll never forget. And because he passed away July 30th. And we were sitting there in the hospital, and he said, I was putting the cover on, and he said, hey, I just want you to know something. I said, yeah, Dad. What's going on, Daddy? And he said, I want you to know that you are a beautiful woman, and you turned out to be such a beautiful woman inside and out. And I hate that I didn't have anything to do with that. And so I just looked, because what you have to know is my daddy is unapologetic. If you know anything about my father, then you know he's an unapologetic man, and he, whatever he said goes, and he never thought he was wrong. He never thought he did anything wrong, as much as stuff that he did wrong. He never really thought that he did anything wrong. And so to hear him say that he was kind of apologizing, and then he went on to apologize. He said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for I wasn't the best dad. And then he said, and I'm sorry because I was wrong about your husband. He said, Bernard is a really good guy, and I was wrong. And in my head, you have to know that I was going crazy in my head, because one, I honestly, this is my honest thought process. I thought either they had put something in his IV that he was hallucinating, or he's actually dying, because people say stuff like that on their deathbed. And because it was so unusual for my dad to say that, I just was like, what did he just say? So it was crazy to hear him say it, and just say that. And so I remember it being just everything I wanted him to ever say to me. It was golden. It was such a blessing in my life, and it was such a release. It was a release of so much pain and so much tension and hurt and feeling unaccepted and feeling denied and feeling wronged, and all these feelings I had were just kind of bubbling, and I was tearing up, and I didn't want to see him to see me crying, because I knew he thought that I thought he was dying. And he was like, I'm fine, I'm okay. And I said, well, Dad, let me call the nurse and see if you're okay. And he's like, no, I'm fine. And so so that day started a beautiful journey of healing between he and I. And I guess we were already on that journey because the relationship was changing, and we were growing. So even though it was limited the time, but it was beautiful. It was. And man, he said that, and I just was like, what? And so he was just like, yeah, I'm sorry. And so when I got home that night, I mean, my head was spinning. I was just like, my dad actually apologized. My dad said I was beautiful. My dad said that my husband was a good husband. It was so, I don't know how to describe that feeling, but it was what it was. And so that started a process of release and forgiveness and a journey to a wholeness, I guess. Well, anyway, and like I said, my dad eventually died. He died a couple of weeks later, and I hated it, because we had just gotten where we wanted to be, where I wanted to be, and where I know he wanted to be, because I just think he didn't know how. I don't think that it was anything intentional. I just think he didn't know how. And so we had just gotten there, and he passed away. So, but with that, but that's okay, because I got exactly what I loved and needed from him. I got such a blessing that most girls just don't get, especially not girls who were products of who were love children, products of love affairs. That's rare. And so I was so happy for the blessing. But anyway, after my dad passed away, it was very hard on me when he passed away. And so, of course, I'm back in counseling, and went back to counseling, and went on another wellness journey to take care of myself. And in that journey, I realized that I was living for him and through him, and I was starting to correct shit and wanted to do things for myself and live for myself and not for anybody else. And you know what I did? I decided to go on a natural hair journey. The reason why, because I knew how my dad felt about nappy-headed, dark-haired dark-skinned, nappy-headed women. And so, but that wasn't what I felt. I felt that I loved big, full, textured hair. And at the time, the girls were on their natural hair journeys, and I was wanting one so bad, and I knew I wanted big hair. So I knew the only way I can get big hair is that if I went on this journey. So, and you know, my ideal of beauty was Diana Ross, was Mahogany, was Shaka Khan, was Donna Summer. Those people were beautiful to me, and they all had big hair. Now, granted, they might have been a wig, but but I wanted it for myself. And so I decided that I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. This is going to be a wellness, part of my wellness journey. I'm going to get my big hair that I want. And so, and I went to my friend. She was a friend of mine. She actually does my extensions. And at the time, listen. My extensions were everything. My extensions were everything. My friend does the best extensions in Houston. And I'll argue that she does the best extensions, period. So when I came to her and told her that I wanted my extensions out, she thought I was tripping. But I did, and I wanted it. And so she said, okay. And she cut them out. And that started my journey. Now my journey has been some ups and downs. I'm telling you, when I first cut that hair, cut those extensions out, and I went home, the next day I got braids because I couldn't do it. And she didn't cut all of the extensions, all of the hair off, because some of it was a little burst. So she left a little bit on because she wanted to be so shocked. But the next day I got braids, and then I wore those braids for like a month. And then in that month, I could just like, that's not what I set out to do. So I took them out, and then I actually cut off all the perm, and I had a TWA, and I just started from there, and I just knew it's going to be fine. So I was on my journey to get what I want, something for me, what I think is beautiful, what I love, big, wild, fun, fluffy, gorgeousness. That's me. That's what I wanted. So I've been on this journey for 2.5 years, and I just kind of got a cut a little while ago. Yeah, that's a story. That's part of my journey. That's part of my wellness and part of who I am. And so I thought I'd tell you that story. You could drop down in the comments and give me all kinds of feedback or whatever, but it's my life and my journey, and it is what it is. So it's my truth, and that's that. And yeah, so all right, what do you guys think?